The day America almost chose a king. On a cold morning in February 1783, while the American Revolution was still bleeding its final wounds, a letter quietly circulated among the highest-ranking officers of the Continental Army. It was not a battle order. It was not a plea for supplies. It was not written by an enemy. It was a proposal that, if accepted, would have erased the United States of America before it was even born. The letter suggested that George Washington should become king, not symbolically, not temporarily, a real monarch ruling a new American kingdom. For nearly 250 years, this moment has been softened in textbooks, reduced to a footnote, framed as a harmless misunderstanding. But the truth is far more dangerous, far more human, and far more shocking. Because for several weeks, the idea did not die immediately. It lingered, and America came closer to becoming a monarchy than most people will ever know. A nation that couldn't pay its own army. By 1783, victory over the British Empire was technically assured. Yorktown had fallen. British troops were exhausted. Peace talks were underway in Paris. But the Continental Army was furious. For years, soldiers had fought barefoot in snow, starved through winters, and watched comrades die of disease rather than bullets. Congress had promised them pay, pensions, land. Congress delivered almost nothing. The new American government had no real power to tax. It had no money. It had no enforcement authority. And worst of all, it had no plan. Officers were owed years of back pay. Many had taken personal loans to survive. Some had sold family property. Others faced bankruptcy the moment the war ended. They had defeated the greatest empire on earth and were about to be abandoned by the country they created. This anger did not come from radicals. It came from generals. The man who wrote the letter. The letter did not bear a signature, but its author was no mystery. Colonel Louis Nicola, a respected officer, a learned man, a European immigrant who had seen nations collapse before. Nicola believed that republics were fragile things, easily destroyed by chaos, debt, and weak leadership. He looked at America and saw danger everywhere. 13 jealous states, no powerless Congress, an unpaid army, no executive authority strong enough to hold the nation together. And he looked at one man, George Washington. Washington was not just a general, he was a symbol, trusted by soldiers, feared by enemies, admired by civilians. If anyone could stabilize the nation, Nicola believed, it was him. So Nicola wrote what he believed was a rational solution. America, he argued, needed a strong central authority, a single leader, a permanent one, a king. And Washington was the only acceptable candidate. Washington's reaction. When Washington received the letter, he did not immediately respond. He read it carefully. Then he did something rare, something historians still debate. He did not destroy it. Instead, he kept it, because Washington understood something crucial. The idea itself mattered more than the letter. The fact that respected officers were even considering monarchy meant the American experiment was already in danger. Finally, Washington replied. His words were calm, polite, measured, but beneath the surface, they were lethal. He wrote that he was astonished by the suggestion and that no event could befall him more distressing than being suspected of such ambitions. He rejected the proposal completely, publicly. Privately, however, Washington was deeply shaken because he knew the army's anger was real, and anger has a way of finding leaders. The Newburgh Crisis. Only weeks later, Washington faced the most dangerous moment of his life, not on a battlefield, but in a meeting hall in Newburgh, New York. Officers were whispering about refusing to disband. Some discussed marching on Congress. Others hinted at establishing military control until demands were met. This was not treason in theory. This was mutiny in preparation. Washington entered the hall unannounced. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He did not command. He spoke as a tired man who had given everything. At one point, struggling to read a letter from Congress, he paused and took out his spectacles. "Gentlemen," he said softly, "I have grown gray in your service, and now find myself growing blind." Many officers wept. The rebellion died in that room, not because Washington was powerful, but because he refused to be. Why this moment matters. History celebrates Washington for refusing a crown. What history rarely confronts is how reasonable the alternative seemed at the time. Europe mocked republics. Democracies failed constantly. Rome collapsed into dictatorship. England executed its king and then restored the monarchy. There was no historical guarantee America would survive without a strongman. Washington's refusal was not inevitable. It was a choice, and that choice set a precedent that every American president would inherit, whether they respected it or not. The pattern repeats. This was not the last time America flirted with authoritarian solutions, not the last time fear made extreme ideas sound practical, not the last time a powerful leader was encouraged to take more than the Constitution allowed. The same tension would resurface during civil war, economic collapse, global conflict, and moments when Americans wondered whether freedom was worth the instability it produced. The ghost of that letter would never fully disappear. It would simply change names. What comes next? In Part 2, the story will move forward. How early American elites secretly distrusted democracy. How property, race, and power shaped the Constitution behind closed doors. Why the Founding Fathers feared the people as much as tyranny. And how America was designed not as a pure democracy, but as a controlled experiment. This is only the beginning. The American story is far stranger and far more fragile than the myth.
The greatest lie Americans tell themselves about their founding is that it was born from unlimited faith in the people. It wasn't. It was born from fear. Not fear of kings, those were already defeated, but fear of chaos, fear of mobs, fear of debtors, fear of farmers with guns, fear that ordinary citizens, if left unchecked, would destroy everything the revolution had achieved. The men who gathered in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787 were not starry-eyed Democrats dreaming of equality. They were veterans of collapse, students of failed republics, landowners, creditors, merchants, slaveholders, and lawyers who had watched revolutions eat themselves alive in Europe. They had won independence. Now they feared the people they had freed. The warning signs were already there. 4 years after independence, America was not celebrating. It was unraveling. State governments printed worthless paper money. Farmers demanded debt relief. Courts were shut down by angry crowds. Veterans of the Revolution, men who had fought for liberty, were losing their farms to foreclosure. And then it happened. In western Massachusetts, a former Continental Army officer named Daniel Shays led an armed uprising. His crime? He wanted the government to stop seizing farms from indebted farmers and war veterans. To the elites, this was not protest, it was anarchy. Shays' rebellion terrified the ruling class. Armed citizens marching on courthouses looked too much like the early stages of total collapse. George Washington, retired at Mount Vernon, received frantic letters warning that the republic was disintegrating. Henry Knox wrote bluntly that the rebels believed the property of the United States has been protected by the confiscation of Britain, by the joint exertions of all, and therefore ought to be the common property of all. To men who owned vast estates, that sentence sounded like the beginning of the end. The Constitution was not inevitable. The Constitutional Convention was never supposed to happen. Officially, the delegates were sent to revise the Articles of Confederation. Quietly, many had already decided the articles were beyond repair. The meetings were held in total secrecy. Windows shut in the summer heat, guards posted outside, no official transcripts allowed. What happened inside was not meant for public consumption, because what they were doing was not reform, it was replacement. The existing government had no authority to tax, no executive power, and no national courts. The new plan would create all three, whether the people wanted it or not. James Madison arrived with a blueprint already drafted. It proposed a powerful central government that could override state laws, veto legislation, and suppress internal disorder. This was not a small adjustment. It was a controlled revolution against the revolution. Democracy carefully restricted. Contrary to modern belief, the Founding Fathers did not trust mass voting at all. Most delegates believed direct democracy was dangerous, unstable, and easily manipulated by demagogues. They pointed to Athens, to Rome, to recent chaos in the states. So they designed a system full of filters. The Senate would not be elected by the people. The president would not be elected by the people. Judges would not be elected at all. The Electoral College was created specifically to override popular will if voters made a dangerous choice. Alexander Hamilton openly argued that the president should serve for life during good behavior. Earl Bridge Gerry warned that the evils we experience flow from the excess of democracy. This was not hidden sentiment, it was foundational. The compromise that haunts America. No part of the Constitution revealed the founders' moral limits more clearly than slavery. They knew it was wrong. They said so repeatedly, but they protected it anyway. Southern states made it clear, no slavery protections, no union. So compromises were made. Human beings were counted as 3/5 of a person for representation, not for rights. The international slave trade was protected for 20 years. Fugitive slave clauses were inserted quietly. The Constitution did not create slavery, but it preserved it. And by doing so, it embedded a contradiction so deep that only civil war could tear it out. Ratification was a battle of narratives. When the Constitution was finished, its authors knew they had a problem. The people might reject it, so they sold it. The Federalist Papers were not neutral explanations. They were political persuasion, carefully crafted arguments meant to calm fears and minimize the document's true power. Opponents, called anti-federalists, warned that the presidency looked suspiciously like monarchy, that a standing army was dangerous, that individual liberties were unprotected. They were not wrong. The Constitution contained no Bill of Rights. That omission was deliberate. Rights could limit power, and power was the point. Only after intense pressure did the founders agree to add amendments, promises meant to secure ratification, not originally intended as the foundation. George Washington again. When Washington was unanimously elected president, he could have reshaped the office however he wished. Everyone was watching. Foreign governments assumed he would rule like a king. Some Americans expected it, others feared it. Washington chose restraint. He stepped down after 2 terms, not because the Constitution required it, but because precedent mattered. Once again, he rejected the easy path to permanence. But the system he led was not immune to abuse. It was merely untested. The question that never went away. From the beginning, America carried a tension it never resolved. How much power is too much power when the alternative is disorder? Every generation would face the same dilemma under different names, and sometimes they would choose wrongly. The founders built safeguards, but they also built loopholes, and sooner or later, someone would discover how to exploit them. The next turning point. In Part 3, the story moves forward into the 19th century. How expansion fueled democracy and brutality at the same time. how the presidency quietly accumulated power, how America justified empire while preaching liberty, and how one war transformed the federal government forever. The experiment continues, and the cost begins to rise.
Empire in the name of liberty. America did not set out to become an empire. That is the story it tells itself. But from the moment the Constitution centralized power, expansion was no longer an accident. It was a necessity. The young republic was built on debt, ambition, and land hunger. To survive, it needed growth. To grow, it needed territory. And to take territory, it needed force. Liberty, it turned out, traveled best with soldiers. The frontier myth begins. In the early 1800s, Americans spoke of the frontier as destiny, not conquest. The land beyond the Appalachians was described as empty, wild, waiting. It wasn't. Millions of indigenous people already lived there, governed, farmed, traded, fought wars, and signed treaties. But acknowledging that reality would have complicated the moral narrative. So the nation embraced a simpler story. Expansion was freedom, resistance was savagery, removal was progress. Presidents didn't invent this logic, they inherited it. Jefferson's contradiction. Jefferson believed in liberty more than most founders. He also doubled the size of the United States through the Louisiana Purchase, acquiring land without clear constitutional authority and without the consent of those who lived on it. Jefferson knew the Constitution did not clearly allow this. He did it anyway, because opportunity rarely waits for legal perfection. The purchase secured America's future, but it also set a precedent. When national interest demanded action, constitutional limits could bend. That lesson would be remembered. The presidency grows teeth. Early presidents were cautious. Later ones were not. Andrew Jackson did not govern like a gentleman philosopher. He governed like a general who had learned that force worked. He ignored Supreme Court rulings. He defied treaties. He removed native nations at gunpoint. The Trail of Tears was not a tragic misunderstanding. It was policy. Jackson was popular precisely because he embodied decisive power. He spoke the language of ordinary white voters while wielding authority like a king. The presidency became something new under him, not just an office, but a weapon, and Americans rewarded him for it. Manifest destiny, God as a witness. By the 1840s, expansion had a name, manifest destiny. It claimed that America's growth was inevitable, righteous, and divinely approved. This belief transformed land seizures into moral duty and war into progress. The Mexican-American War followed. It was provoked, it was controversial, and it was successful. The United States took half of Mexico's territory. Critics, including a young Abraham Lincoln, called it unjust, but victory silenced most objections. Power tends to do that. The question slavery would not answer quietly. Every new territory raised the same explosive question, free or slave. Compromises postponed the answer. Laws balanced the scales. Politicians avoided confrontation. But history does not tolerate unresolved contradictions. A nation built on liberty and bondage could not expand forever without tearing itself apart. By the 1850s, violence was no longer theoretical. It was bleeding in Kansas. It was shouted in Congress. It was whispered in every compromise. The Constitution had delayed the reckoning. It had not prevented it. Lincoln and the emergency powers. When Abraham Lincoln took office, the Republic was already collapsing. States were leaving, armies were forming. The Constitution offered no clear instruction on how to save itself from dissolution. So Lincoln acted. He suspended habeas corpus. He arrested dissenters. He expanded executive power beyond precedent. Some called him a tyrant. Others called him a savior. Both were correct. The Civil War transformed the federal government from a limited union into a centralized national authority. Taxes increased. Armies became permanent. The president became commander of an industrial war machine.
The Union survived, but it emerged changed. Victory without resolution. Slavery ended. That was real. Equality did not follow. Reconstruction tried and failed to remake the South. Federal power briefly protected Black citizens, then withdrew under political pressure. White supremacist terror filled the vacuum. The Constitution had been amended. The nation's conscience had not. And once again, power chose stability over justice. The new American pattern. By the end of the 19th century, the pattern was clear. Crisis expanded power. Victory normalized it. Retreat never fully happened. America now had the tools of empire: a strong presidency, a standing army, and an industrial economy and a moral narrative flexible enough to justify almost anything. The question was no longer whether America would project power beyond its borders. It was how far and at what cost.
The quiet birth of an empire. America did not announce its arrival as a global empire. It slipped into the role. No coronation, no declaration, no admission. By the end of the 19th century, the United States spoke the language of anti-imperialism while practicing empire with increasing confidence. It rejected European colonialism in theory, then copied its methods in practice, refining them for a new age. What changed was not American ideals. What changed was American scale. The war that was supposed to be short. In 1898, the United States went to war with Spain. Officially, it was about liberation, freeing Cuba from colonial rule after the explosion of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor. Newspapers screamed for blood. Remember the Maine became a rallying cry before evidence existed. The war lasted 4 months. America won easily, and then it kept what it took: Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines. Suddenly, the Republic ruled overseas territories populated by millions who had no vote, no representation, and no clear path to equality. The founders warned against empire. America accepted it anyway. The Philippine War no one wanted to remember. Filipino revolutionaries had fought Spain for independence long before Americans arrived. They expected freedom. Instead, they got new rulers. When Filipinos resisted U.S. control, America responded with brutal counterinsurgency tactics: concentration camps, torture, village burnings. Civilian deaths reached into the hundreds of thousands. Back home, this war barely registered. It did not fit the story. Empire was easier to sell when it happened far away and in the name of progress. The machinery of modern power. Empire required more than soldiers. It required infrastructure. The U.S. Navy expanded rapidly. Coal stations dotted the globe. The Panama Canal, built through manipulation, revolution, and disease, gave America control over world trade routes. Presidents now spoke openly about national interest beyond borders, and corporations followed the flag. Banana republics emerged in Central America. U.S. companies influenced elections, overthrew governments, and shaped economies, all with quiet government support. This was not old-world colonialism. It was something new. World War I, power without preparation. When World War I erupted, America tried to stay out, not because it lacked interest, but because it lacked readiness. Yet neutrality proved impossible in a globalized economy. American money flowed to the Allies. American ships crossed dangerous waters. American lives were lost. In 1917, President Woodrow Wilson brought the nation into war, not for conquest, but to make the world safe for democracy. The phrase mattered. It reframed war as moral obligation. America emerged victorious and disillusioned. Wilson failed to secure U.S. participation in the League of Nations. The country retreated inward, wary of entanglements, confident in strength, uncertain of purpose. The pause would not last. The Great Depression and the power of crisis. The stock market crash of 1929 shattered American confidence. Banks failed, jobs vanished, families starved. And once again, crisis expanded power. Franklin Roosevelt did not invent federal authority, but he used it more aggressively than any president before him. Through the New Deal, the government regulated markets, built infrastructure, and reshaped daily life. Some called it socialism, some called it salvation. The Constitution bent but did not break. Americans accepted the expansion because it came with relief. That lesson would echo. World War II changes everything. World War II did not just defeat fascism, it redefined America. The federal government mobilized industry, science, media, and labor on a scale never imagined. The presidency became the command center of a global operation. The military-industrial relationship formed quietly and permanently. And then came the bomb. Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the war and began a new era. America emerged not just victorious, but unmatched. For the first time in history, a republic held the power to destroy the world. The Cold War logic. The Cold War turned fear into structure. Permanent military spending, permanent intelligence agencies, permanent emergency. The CIA was created in secrecy, surveillance expanded, foreign governments were influenced, toppled, supported, or abandoned based on strategic interest. All of it justified by one word: containment. Democracy survived, but under guard. Elections continued, but with boundaries. Freedom existed, but alongside files, lists, and quiet interventions. This was not dictatorship, it was something more efficient. The American dilemma reappears. Each generation believed its emergency was temporary. Each generation left behind permanent tools. America did not become an empire by rejecting its ideals. It became one by defending them aggressively, endlessly, everywhere. And the world
Empires
adjusted.
often imagine danger as something distant, across oceans, behind borders, in foreign languages. America learned, slowly, painfully, that fear does not stay abroad. It returns. And when it does, it reshapes the nation from the inside out. The enemy without a face. The Cold War did not look like previous wars. There were no front lines, no declarations, no clear end. Instead, there was suspicion. Communism was not just an ideology, it was framed as an infection, invisible, contagious, capable of hiding inside schools, unions, churches, and government offices. Fear needed proof, so America created rituals of loyalty. Oaths were demanded, files were opened, careers were destroyed without trials. Joseph McCarthy did not invent this culture, he exploited it. McCarthyism and the theater of accusation. McCarthy waived lists he never proved. Names changed, numbers shifted, evidence evaporated. It didn't matter. The spectacle worked. People were afraid not of being communists, but of being accused. Silence became survival. Conformity became safety. The Constitution still existed, but its protections felt conditional. The lesson was clear. In moments of national anxiety, rights become negotiable. Media learns its power. Television entered American homes just as fear peaked. For the first time, the state did not just inform, it narrated. News anchors became authority figures. Images shaped memory more than facts. Wars were framed. Enemies were simplified. Questions were discouraged. The line between information and persuasion blurred, not through force, but repetition. Civil rights and the limits of patience. While America preached freedom abroad, millions were denied it at home. Black Americans did not ask for revolution, they asked for the Constitution. Peaceful protest was met with dogs, fire hoses, batons. Images traveled the world, embarrassing the empire in real time.
Federal power, so cautious elsewhere, was finally used to enforce rights, not out of moral awakening alone, but because injustice had become a liability. Progress arrived. So did backlash. Vietnam, when authority cracks. Vietnam shattered the illusion of moral certainty. The enemy was unclear. The objectives shifted. The victories never came. Television showed dead soldiers and burning villages nightly. Trust eroded. Government statements contradicted reality. The Pentagon Papers confirmed what many suspected. Leaders had lied, systematically. For the first time, large numbers of Americans questioned not just a war, but the honesty of their institutions. Power survived. Credibility did not. Surveillance becomes normal. In response to unrest, the state watched more closely. The FBI monitored activists. The CIA overstepped domestically. Files grew thick. When exposed, reforms were promised. Oversight committees formed. Rules were written. But the machinery remained. It always does. The shift toward control without coercion. By the late 19th century, America learned a new method. Force was expensive. Censorship was obvious. But shaping incentives, that was elegant. Economic pressure replaced overt repression. Media saturation replaced blunt propaganda. Law enforcement expanded quietly through drug policy, sentencing laws, and surveillance technology. Order was maintained, not by fear alone, but by structure. September 11th, the door reopens. Then came a morning that changed everything. Planes, fire, collapse. Fear returned, raw and undeniable. The response was immediate. The Patriot Act expanded surveillance. Wars were launched on promises of security. Emergency powers became standard procedure. Americans accepted it because fear had a voice, and it said, "This is different." The pattern completes itself. Every era believed its threat was unique. Every era surrendered something temporary. Nothing temporary ever stayed that way. By the early 21st century, America was powerful, monitored, divided, and unsure. The empire stood, but its foundation
invisible
felt
power.
unstable.
Power no longer needs uniforms. It does not march. It does not announce itself. It does not ask permission. In the modern United States, authority learned to disappear into screens, systems, algorithms, and habits so familiar they feel natural. This is not the end of democracy. It is its quiet transformation. From ideology to infrastructure. In the 20th century, power argued. In the 21st, it optimized. Beliefs mattered less than behavior. Convincing people became secondary to guiding what they saw, clicked, shared, and ignored. Technology did not overthrow democracy. Democracy outsourced itself. Platforms promised connection, convenience, choice. What they delivered was structure. Invisible, automatic, efficient structure. The algorithmic filter. Information once flowed through editors, institutions, and norms. Now it flows through code. Algorithms decide what rises and what disappears, not based on truth or civic value, but engagement, emotion, outrage, confirmation. This did not require conspiracy. It required incentives. Fear spreads faster than nuance. Anger travels farther than patience. Simpler stories outperform the complex ones. The system learns what keeps attention, and it feeds it back. Surveillance, voluntary and total. After 9/11, surveillance expanded through law. After smartphones, it expanded through consent. Location, contacts, habits, purchases, sleep. Citizens now carry tracking devices by choice because participation requires them. The data is not primarily used for repression. That would be crude. It is used for prediction, to know what you will want before you decide, to shape environments so decisions feel like freedom. Power without accountability. Corporations now possess influence once reserved for states. They shape discourse, control infrastructure, set rules of participation. They are not elected. They are not bound by constitutions. They are not designed for civic outcomes. And yet, they mediate almost all modern public life. When they fail, there is no recall election, only updated terms of service. Politics becomes performance. As attention fragmented, politics adapted. Substance lost to spectacle, policy to personality. Outrage became currency. Identity replaced ideology. This was not accidental. In an attention economy, the loudest signal wins. Nuance does not trend. The return of strongman logic. In moments of uncertainty, old instincts resurface. Order over deliberation, certainty over complexity, strength over restraint. The language changes, the logic doesn't. Every system designed to protect democracy can be repurposed to manage it, legally, gradually, efficiently. The illusion of choice. Modern citizens feel free. They choose content, products, beliefs. But choice inside a curated environment is not the same as autonomy. When options are filtered, ranked, nudged, and optimized, freedom becomes directional. No coercion required. What history suggests? Empires rarely collapse from invasion. They erode from internal contradictions. When trust decays, when institutions feel hollow, when participation feels performative. America has faced this before. The difference now is scale, speed, and subtlety. The unanswered question. The founders feared mobs. They feared kings. They never imagined systems powerful enough to guide behavior without commanding it. The Constitution restrains people. It struggles to restrain platforms. Where this leaves us. This is not a prophecy. It is a pattern, one that history has repeated in different forms, now updated for a digital age. The American experiment is not finished, but it is no longer
The age
simple.
of invisible power. Power no longer needs uniforms. It does not march. It does not announce itself. It does not ask permission. In the modern United States, authority learned to disappear into screens, systems, algorithms, and habits so familiar they feel natural. This is not the end of democracy. It is its quiet transformation. From ideology